This is Matthew Kratters, Bitcoin University. Today I want to talk about the digital prison that's coming to Europe and coming to other countries as well. And we're also going to be talking about CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. Now let's say I were a government and I wanted to completely subdue the people of my country and turn them into docile sheep that could be milked for taxes, sent off to fight any foreign wars I wanted, etc. These are the steps that I would take to create the perfect real world and digital prison. The first thing I would do is I would ban guns. I would make sure that normal people have no effective way to defend themselves or their families. Gun control really just means no gun for you and your family, but criminals and governments will still have the guns. This is obviously what Mao did in China. Mao's first act after gaining complete control of China in 1949 was to take away all the guns from the population. Number two, I would ban free speech. I would tell people that they still have free speech, of course, but that we're going to make the public square and the internet a safe space where people can't say terrible, hurtful things. And as the government, I will be very happy to decide which things are terrible and hurtful, really just anything that threatens my power or interferes with my current nefarious plans for my people. And if it becomes necessary, I'd force people to obtain an internet license, similar to a driver's license for cars, in order to be allowed by their ISP to access the internet. And then if they say anything online that contradicts the current government talking points, like safe and effective, you simply revoke their internet access. This is much easier and cleaner than having to call up social media companies one by one and get their accounts banned or deplatformed. In fact, I would make this internet passport part of a much larger digital ID program that would combine identity, passport, driver's license, internet passport license, etc., all into one. Give everyone an official digital ID or DID or DID. Make them use it for everything so that the government can keep track of their movements, their spending patterns, etc. Next step, you create a social credit score for every person that is linked to their digital ID. If you do what the government tells you to do, if you're a good little citizen, you'll get points added. If you do something bad that the government doesn't like, you get points subtracted. So if you do a bad meme about Mao, turning it from Mao into Lamau, you lose 5 points deducted from your Chinese social credit score. Number four, I would roll out a digital currency that gave me complete control over people's money and allowed me to instantly freeze funds, instantly withdraw taxes that I say that you owe me, choose spending windows. So if you don't spend this $100 at a state-owned grocery store in the next 3 days, the money will expire. I'd also incentivize spending patterns. For example, if you buy Impossible Burger, you gain some points, but if you buy real beef, you lose some points. You could also take this to the ultimate level of control and control spending patterns. So for example, your money, because you've been bad, can no longer be used to buy meat at any store that accepts digital money. And there is no longer any cash, so you really have no money if you don't have the state's digital money. This digital money really would be the linchpin of my control. And as your social credit score fell, your money would be slowly turned off. If you said something bad on the internet, your money would be turned off even as your internet driver's license is turned off. One digital ID could control your access to both money and digital services like the internet, and we all know how much we live our lives online. So if you do something bad, your digital ID, you wouldn't be able to access your messaging, you wouldn't be able to get into your phone or your email or your bank account, your CBDC. You could also use this as sort of a movement passport. You've been a bad boy, so you can no longer take public transportation or enter the airport. And if you haven't had that special medicine injected into your arm, you cannot leave the country, as Canada did in 2020 and 2021. This money piece is very important, as Rothschild is famous for saying, "Give me control of a nation's money supply, and I care not who makes its laws." If you're finding this video interesting so far, I just ask you to help to support this channel's educational mission. Hit the subscribe button, that does really help. Leave a like, leave a comment, question, suggestion for a future video. Also share this video with a friend or family member. So what I'm talking about here, this digital prison, we could put it in American terms, basically revoke the First and Second Amendment, revoke the Fourth Amendment, and roll out a CBDC, a central bank digital currency, fiat money issued by the central bank, that rides on purely digital rails and can be completely controlled at a granular level. This is what CBDCs are. We don't have to imagine what this looks like, since China has already created the best digital prison that the world has ever seen. This is a great account to follow on Twitter. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce it, Song Ping Gong, but he or she does wonderful stuff on here. China is updating its social credit scoring system to incorporate central bank digital currency. Now China's digital wallet WeChat only allows people with a social credit score of 500 or above to take China's Uber. Here's its Baidu. CBDCs are the ultimate tool of control. This is back from April of 2024. China is integrating the central bank's digital currency into its social credit system. To shop at China's self-service grocery stores, you'll now need a minimum social credit score of 550. Are you ready for this in your country? Now Chinese digital wallet Alipay requires its users to have a social credit score of 550 or above in order to get toilet paper. CBDC is one of the greatest threats to our freedom because the government could track every dollar you spend and even turn off your money. In China, a single social media post that's deemed disinformation by the government can cost you 50 social credit points, leading to arrest and blacklisting. This can affect your career, your ability to take a train, your internet speed, and even your children's access to education. And then this post from Wide Awake Media. In China, the CBDC is linked to the citizen's mandatory digital ID. If somebody drives over the speed limit, in this case 20 kilometers per hour, the speed camera system automatically deducts a fine from their digital wallet. So you can see how everything can be connected through a digital ID. China, welcome to Skynet. They really call it that. It's an interlinked system of facial recognition surveillance cameras to crack down on anyone considered as an enemy of the state. Now China has 850 million surveillance cameras, half of the world's total. So that's China. That's this fully rolled out system, and it's going to be very, very difficult for the people to ever escape from this. Now let's take a look at what's happening in Europe, because if you think this can't happen in Europe or the US, you would be wrong. Europe, of course, has been pushing this European digital identity for all Europeans, a personal digital wallet for EU citizens and residents, a digital ID and personal digital wallet for residents and businesses. And I'll put a link to all of this in the description notes below. So they already have the digital ID, and of course guns have been effectively banned in most countries in Europe for a long time. In contrast to the US, where the right to own firearms is implemented in the Constitution under the Second Amendment, European countries have strict regulations that mostly ban civilians from bearing guns, with only a few exceptions. We have the Czech Republic, we have Switzerland, but in most places you cannot defend your family in Europe. And now Europe has also been going after free speech in many, many different ways. They especially don't like Twitter, X, and they don't like Musk, and they keep launching investigations into what's been said on that platform. And now we have the final piece of the digital prison coming down. We have the announcement by the head of the ECB, the European Central Bank, of the fact that central bank digital currencies, a digital euro, will be rolled out in October of 2025. And she said they're accelerating this. Lagarde reports that the digital euro will launch in October. They will track every payment. They can block purchases, automatic taxes. Without cash, you depend on the ECB. They will sell you convenience, but you will lose freedom, and you will be happy. I'll put a link to this in the description notes below so you can listen to Lagarde speak about this. TFTC does a summary as well. She confirms the digital euro launches in October. They say it's about convenience, but they'll track every payment, block purchases, and control where you spend. CBDCs aren't money, they're permission slips. They will track every payment, they can block purchases, as we spoke about. No meat this week, your carbon footprint is too high. Control movement, your money only works where they want you to be. Example, the government says no travel, your money will only work near your home. They can impose their ideology on you. For example, your money won't work for a vacation unless you buy a carbon credit. Now, of course, this is not being done to stop crime, because the people in charge of the ECB and in charge of the EU are criminals themselves. Christine Lagarde was convicted over a payout when she was the IMF chief, but that didn't stop her from being raised up to be the head of the European Central Bank, the ECB. So these people who are running this are actual convicted criminals. I thought this tweet from Theo Mogenet was quite good. ECB, as a crypto issuer within the European Union, shouldn't you obtain the CASP status as defined by MiCA? However, considering that you operate, and again, he's talking about the European Central Bank here, considering that you operate with negative capital, you've utterly failed to forecast your own financials, you've never undergone an audit, you're managed by former criminals like Lagarde, who would undoubtedly fail integrity checks, you haven't disclosed to investors the risks associated with holding your shitcoin, your fiat money, you can't provide assurances against market manipulation, and lack a cybersecurity audit, I doubt you would qualify. Isn't it ironic how regulators impose standards on private companies that they themselves can't uphold just before they start competing with them? Now, you don't need labor political prisoner camps when you can turn your country or your union into an open-air prison with CBDCs, digital IDs, social credit scores, checkpoints, and surveillance everywhere, including biometric. You have to scan your face to use your phone, or ride the subway, or get through TSA, which is what we have in the American airports. This is how you're going to survive this digital prison. These are the pillars of surviving. Unstoppable money, which is obviously Bitcoin. Unstoppable free speech, which is taking place to a certain extent on X, Twitter, at the moment, but ultimately we're going to need decentralized social media like Nostr, for example, for unstoppable free speech, where you can never be banned or deplatformed. And then, of course, unstoppable defense, 3D printing of things, which I can't really talk about here, but you can probably figure it out. Now, it won't surprise you to learn that Lagarde hates Bitcoin. Lagarde has said that Bitcoin is worth nothing and should be regulated. She talks about crypto in general, but her specific comments have always been about Bitcoin, and she likes her CBDC instead. The digital euro will be a safer store of value, ECB president says, etc. So this has been in the works for a while. This question, will CBDCs destroy Bitcoin? No, they will not destroy Bitcoin, but they'll rather massively increase demand for unstoppable, censorship-resistant money like Bitcoin. Will CBDCs hurt Bitcoin by programmatically preventing capital inflows from fiat into Bitcoin? No, because it'll be relatively easy to exchange your CBDC euros, for example, for physical goods, and then trade those physical goods for Bitcoin. So, for example, you could buy, let's say you buy a lawnmower with your ECB CBDC, and then you sell that lawnmower to a Bitcoiner for Bitcoin. This may be the sort of barter transactions that will become necessary in Europe, and heaven forbid in the US if this were to happen. It doesn't look like this is something that's really going to happen under Trump, so we've got about a 4-year break here, but this will certainly happen at some point. One will also be able to sell goods and services directly for Bitcoin if you're in a CBDC economy, thus leading to a self-contained Bitcoin circular economy. Needless to say, you should try to get some Bitcoin before these CBDCs get rolled out, especially if you're in Europe, and Europe is quite a disaster now. If I lived there, I would definitely consider leaving. Thank goodness for the world that we have Bitcoin now, because Bitcoin is peer-to-peer, it's permissionless, no one can stop the widespread buying and selling of goods and services in Bitcoin, and this is why it's important to become proficient in Bitcoin and how to use it before CBDCs are rolled out in your country. Once you get to the level of lockdown and control that's in China, it becomes much, much more difficult. It's still possible, but it's difficult. The government can stop 100 people from using Bitcoin, but it can't stop 10 million or 50 million people from using Bitcoin. And the only way they would stop you from using Bitcoin is they would find out you're a public Bitcoiner like me, and then they would attack you in real life in meat space. They obviously couldn't stop your Bitcoin payments, but they can do stuff to hurt individual people. And that's why it's important we have as many Bitcoiners as possible in the world who can stick together and resist this. And so we can also increase the anonymity set of Bitcoiners. Unlike Bitcoin, CBDCs will constantly lose purchasing power as well, since they're just another form of fiat money. So holders of CBDCs, whether it's issued by the Chinese central bank or by the ECB, the European Central Bank, holders of these CBDCs will continue to get more and more poor relative to Bitcoiners. So that does give us another advantage, an economic, financial advantage. It might just make sense to buy some Bitcoin before the digital prison of CBDCs is rolled out in your country or globally. You can track this using the Human Rights Foundation tracker of CBDCs. They have a link and you can see what's happening in your country. I also want to share a few memes with you that you can share online to spread this message. CBDC gives more power to the state and less power to you. Bitcoin gives more power to you and less power to the state. I'll put links to all of these in the description notes below so you can tweet them out or share them on social media. Hey, cool, government is trying to make my life easier with the digital currency. CBDC, every transaction is documented, frozen funds, cybersecurity attacks, zero privacy, zero anonymity. And then this is the ultimate choice that all humans, all sovereign individuals face in this 21st century. The renaissance of 2.0, which is freedom, sovereignty, agorism, permaculture, Bitcoin, bodily autonomy, and then of course the brave new world of tyranny, the ECB panopticon or the Chinese panopticon with their social credit scores, digital IDs, CBDCs, and of course, various forms of medical mandates as well. This is the choice that individuals and families and countries face. And so it's very important to see these things coming, to see this with eyes wide open. And so when Lagarde talks about CBDCs, you have to see them in the context of governments seeking to exert their control over their populations. This is something that must be publicized and it must be resisted, because once you're locked in one of these digital prisons, it's very, very difficult to escape, because you don't have access to the internet, you can't leave the country, and you're basically in a position to the same that many Chinese people are today. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the subscribe and like button. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video, and let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.